Hi again, everybody. Steve Wilder with Sorensen Wilder and Associates, joined today by Dan Wilder, our Vice President of Operation, and Glenn Nixon, our Senior Security Specialist. A lot's been happening since the last video we put out. We, continue to be in close contact with many of our clients, and we're listening to the things that you're telling us. We're listening to the feedback. The experiences that you're sharing with us of what's going on at the facility level has been very valuable to us. One of the things, and what we want to talk a little bit about today, one of the things that I've heard from multiple facilities now is that there's talk going on now about slowly starting to open everything back up again. We don't know when the regulations, the rules are going to be relaxed on the facilities, but we do know that families are starting to feel the stress. It's getting worse on them. It's getting harder on them. It's getting harder on your residents and on your patients. And we know that as soon as we start to open up, we're going to be hit with an influx of family members coming in, and they're not all going to understand that there's going to be a gradual approach to reintroducing visitors into the building, just the same as there probably will be for some to reintroduce employees back into the building. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about how to manage the hostilities that we may be exposed to, keep them from try to keep them from becoming overly aggressive, and how to diffuse their anger, if you will, when we have to tell them about the rules.
Steve, that brings up a good point. After not seeing grandma for 3 months or 2 months or however long it's been, we're not going to want to hear a bunch of different rules. We're not going to want to hear, well, you got to come in an orderly fashion. You got to have your temperature taken. You got to have this. We're not going to understand that, or people aren't going to understand that. They're going to want to get in right away. They're going to want everything to go back to normal, every single door open, just like it was 3 months ago before this all happened. I want to go see mom. I want to go now. I don't want to sign in. It's imperative for the facilities to recognize that this is going to happen and start communicating early, giving people an idea of when they're opening, what it's going to be like when they open, and asking for compliance. Using phrases that end in an apostrophe T, and asking them to cooperate, and asking that question in apostrophe T. For example, you do want what's best for your family member, don't you? You can follow these guidelines to ensure that all of them stay healthy, can't you? Allowing them to say yes and giving them that choice, because now they feel like they have power. But letting them understand and helping them understand through good communication may help lessen some of that aggression.
And I think you hit a nail on the head there, Dan. And we know from the programs that we do for our clients that the more we can do to get them to agree. First of all, you hit a nail on the head when you said, we empower them to make right decisions. We need to, in this case, guide them to water and help them to drink. Instead of telling them this is the rules. We know that in some cases, especially with bigger families, mom's in the facility. She has 6 kids, 6 adult kids. They're all going to want to come in and see mom. They haven't been in to see her for at least 2 months, if not longer. So they're all going to want to come in, and we know that that's not going to be realistic. They're going to be having to come in phases and reintroduce gradually. So we have to make sure that at the facility level, we're prepared to communicate these messages to them, and helping them to, we know that the more we can get them to agree with us, the more likely they are to cooperate with us. So helping them to understand, communications is so critical. And there's a lot of different ways, Glenn, that we can communicate with these families. But I think we need to start putting together some kind of a strategy now. And this is what I've been telling folks: start putting together your strategy now to be able to introduce family members back into the facility at the point where it's given the green light.
Well, that's essential. And communication doesn't start with instances and crisis like this. Communication starts off with having a good mass communication system, so we can talk to our families, we can talk to our residents about here's how we're going to phase this in, and we can talk to all of our other outside agencies that we deal with every day, whether it be hospice or food or providers, medical providers. Mass communication systems, especially very efficient, modern, electronic, web-based mass communication systems, put a lot of information out to a lot of people in an instant. And relying on the old systems of telephone trees, those are just outdated. It's labor intensive. It's not accurate, and it just takes too long to get the message out. Whereas, look at modern alternatives that we have out there, visual communication and using technology like Alexa and Google Home and things like that. Those are the things that are going to help us communicate with our patients, our residents, and all of the providers, and help the residents then communicate with the family members. Also, a little programming and a little technology interfacing with private contractors using these in-home assistants and things like this in each room allows the facility to then communicate directly with the residents every day on a daily basis, whether it be the events that are on each day or just as simple as the lunch menu. It engages them in this technology, and it's a worthwhile technology to have because it's an instant communication from the outside world and relieves some of the stress on our family members as well as our residents.
And I agree with you. We're seeing more and more facilities with mass notification systems installed on their IT network. But for those that haven't gotten to that point yet, what are some alternatives that we can suggest for them in terms of how to communicate with the families, how to communicate with the employees in order to share the message? I think one of the things we need to think about is unified messages so that everybody's singing the same song, if you will. How do we do that?
It's all about training from the day they start at the facility. It starts with orientation and gathering their information. That way we can communicate efficiently with our employees. And that may mean text messaging. It may mean emails, in-house emails that they can have access on their private phones, but everybody having the same message. And, news broadcasts come in a lot of different forms now. Reporters show up from everything from the major market newscasters with the trucks and the satellite dishes to the guy that lives down the street that runs a website or a Facebook page or something else. And they tend to build the crisis a lot heavier than it needs to be sometimes because they want to get the scoop on the big guys.
Right.
So it's all about communicating with your employees so your employees don't say something contradictory, and never allow employees to talk to media or outside communications because it's a trap waiting to happen.
One thing I think we can do in the short term without reinventing the wheel, right now we need to start instant communication with family members and start telling them, hey, this is what's going on. This is how the loved ones are. Phone trees, Glenn said, is outdated, but if we don't have anything else, it's at least a start so we can start communicating with family members right now, because now's not the time to institute a new Alexa unit to every room and spend thousands of dollars. It's something to look at down the road. If we already have it in play, let's use it. But for those of the facilities that don't have it, let's start throwing out a newsletter. If we can mail a letter to all of our family members saying, hey, we are looking to open June 1st. We have currently had X amount of cases of the COVID-19. We are seeing a downward trend. We're going to be able to open. When we open, we will be going to the north entrance or whatever entrance is designated for screening. We ask that you comply with these rules, as this will make sure that everybody's able to get in to see them at a reasonable time. As things progress, look at different ways to communicate with them. Can we use a phone tree? If something changes and June 1st becomes no longer an option, we need to communicate that with them too. It may help a little bit to alleviate some of that stress.
Using the technology, which I totally agree with, and I agree with both of you, different concepts and methodologies are available. Using technology that we've got today, if we don't have some type of mass notification system, most all of the email systems, allow you to set up user groups. You define who's in each user group. Now would be the time. Start building user groups for family members. Start building user groups for staff members. And you can set it up any way you want. You can set it up by shift. You can set it up alphabetically, however you want to do it. But start sending it out, because that gives you, that's a one-click thing that once you set up, you're just sending out an email blast to everybody in the group rather than have to send out to a couple hundred individual employees. So using that kind of technology, and like I said, I know Gmail has it, Outlook has it, Ymail has it, Microsoft's email service has it. You can set up user groups in all of these. So, simple technology that you've already got available to help you between now and then falls right into the planning phase. What about the message we send out, though? One thing that scares me is the risk of having, 10 different employees telling family members 10 different things. Or
commonality of message makes a big difference, and knowing that your employees are going to get questioned by residents, knowing that every day seems to bring a new challenge and a new date for a slow release, having a common message, and that may be at the huddle, it may be at the end of shift, and reemphasize that again, we don't talk to media, but when people ask us things, when can my loved ones come see me again? We have a common message, and that should be communicated to the residents, to the families, to the employees, obviously, and anyone else that comes into the facility, whether it be a provider or contractors.
Boy, Glenn, you just hit something that really, I don't know if you even thought when you said it, but when you talk about talking to the media, my hopes are, and I know it's not happening, my hopes are that everybody who's viewing these videos is using either the nursing home incident command system or the assisted living incident command system. And regardless of what system you're using, one of the commonalities in those systems is the use of a public information officer. And that PIO is the only person who talks to the media. And whether your facility's friends, whether your facility is using any form of ICS or is just freelancing on this, you need a designated public information officer. That public information officer has to be clearly identified as the only person who talks to the media, and there needs to be consequences and accountability for employees who want to work outside of that system, because one of the methods that are available to us to make sure that the common message gets out. But making sure, one of the, and I never want to say anything bad about anybody, but one of the facilities I, as recently as yesterday, was visiting with, hadn't made their employees aware of the message that they wanted given to family members when they call. And they had one family member in particular, or one family, I should say, that obviously right now there's a no visitor policy, but the family member, the resident was critically ill, and they were going to set up one remote door into the dedicated COVID unit where they could let one family member come in and be with that loved one with all of the right protections. And they didn't communicate that well to the staff. And all of a sudden, here's 3 or 4 adult children of the resident thinking they were all going to be allowed to be in with dad as he's entering the final moments of life. And now they've got to tell the family members, no, only one of you can come in. And you can appreciate what the scenario was like at that door at that moment. So, I don't fault the families for this. We have to give them a common message.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to is coordinating a message and making sure that we do use this. And during these times, obviously, everyone should be using their incident command structure just to keep organization flowing in the right direction. But again, these are the important factors: mass communication, incident command structure, things like that. That's what we thrive off of. And that's what, Steve, you created a long time ago. That's why we're here. And we are here to help you.
Dan, you talk so often, and I know right now we're going to be running into that as we start to reopen and have to stand by some of the rules that are going to be imposed. You talk so often, though, when we're dealing with a person who is upset, they're angry, they're escalating a little bit, about the difference between directed and non-directed anger. How can the person watching this, the person at the facility level, focus on directed and non-directed anger, know when they're in harm's way, and know when they're just dealing with somebody who's upset, who's venting their frustration?
Sure. Well, the important thing to remember is directed anger is specifically at you. I'm mad at you because you did this. Most people coming in right now are going to be experiencing non-direct anger. They're mad at the situation. Nobody started. I'm sorry?
There's nobody to blame.
Right, exactly. Nobody started the COVID-19. It's not the facility's fault. They're just trying to help. So the things that they're saying and the threats that they're making, we need to kind of let it reflect off of us. And I'm going to let Glenn explain in a minute a little bit about the personal face versus professional face and not taking this stuff too personally, because it's a very good concept. But remember, they're not mad at you. You as a person did nothing wrong. You're trying to help their family member, and they know that, but they're really mad that they can't see their family, and they're really frustrated, and they're worried about their family members also.
Yeah, personal face and professional face are something we talk a lot about during our Essentials of Aggression Management class, how to deal with aggressive behaviors and how to de-escalate people. And the frustration that we see in healthcare is enormous. It's far more than the rest of the workplace. But keeping this perspective of you as a professional and you as a person, while you're at work, everything that's directed towards you becomes directed towards that profession, towards that task that you have to have. And essentially anything once you step outside of work affects you personally, because that's a deeper emotional connection with the people around you. So we got to stress to our folks, keep the professionalism and always be professional at work, and keep your personal face and the damage that someone can create personally outside of the workplace. It allows your employees to deal with stress much, much more efficiently, and then focus on what their task is at work, and then look for that comfort and relief and vulnerability at home where it belongs.
Yeah, they're upset, they're mad, they're not necessarily mad at you. And we always use the acronym Q-tip, quit taking it personally. So, well, guys, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Appreciate you taking the time to view this. I hope you find value in these. As Glenn said, as Dan said, as I always say, we're here for you. You've got questions, pick up the phone, call us 800-568-2931. Hopefully we'll be wrapping this portion of unique portion of our lives up in the not too distant future. We'll see what normal looks like. It's going to have to be redefined, I think. But we'll get through this and we'll move on. So in the meantime, as I always say, stay safe, stay in touch, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.